Konnichiwa. I'm learning Japanese on Duolingo, so I thought I'd throw out, the really hard words. Justin Giddings here, the Kickstarter guy. We are on day 3 of my 30 crowdfunding training videos in 30 days. You might hear some cicadas in the background, so sorry if there's loud buzzings. That would be a tiny bug that comes out every 17 years trying to find a girlfriend. So, in any case, today I want to talk about the second of the 3 core components. So if you caught yesterday's video, I talked about the first one, which is having a thorough marketing plan. Today is having a multiplier. So the second core component is having a multiplier. There are 3 types of multipliers. The first 2 are awesome if you have them, and nobody ever does. I've had like 5 clients out of 140 something launches actually have these, but let's talk about them anyway, because if you got them, they're great. The first is having a big giant ad budget, a couple $1,000s to spend on primarily Facebook ads and other kind of ads. Here's the thing, with film, ad spend isn't necessarily going to be an indicator of success. With games and with products, it's pretty much like you got to have it, and the wisdom is 5% of what you want to raise is what you should set aside for an ad budget. With film, it's a little bit different. You're not going to see that kind of direct return. So if you do have an ad budget, the place I recommend spending it is actually before you launch, running ads to try to find your audience. Basically, it's a good audience building tool. And if you've got some cash to throw in there, sorry, I'm getting eaten by a bug, hold on. If you've got some cash to throw in, building up your list essentially ahead of time by doing targeted ads to really, find your audience is a good move. But there's going to be trial and error. You're going to spend money to figure out what's working and what's not working. So it really requires kind of a pretty substantial budget. For most of my clients, I have them do small ad spends, which, maybe a couple $100 over the entirety of their time with me, and that's not even like required, it's just recommended, and mostly that's boosting content that already has connections to it, which I might talk about in a future video. So if you've got an ad spend and you've got somebody or some way that you know how to spend that effectively, that can totally be valuable. Then the second of the 3 multipliers is having some sort of influencer or celebrity or name. But here's the tricky part about that. They only count if they're going to actively market to their audience. Because the value that they're bringing to your crowdfunding campaign is that they've already built an audience, right? That's a big part of your prep period, is building up an audience. And so if they're bringing that to the table, that's super valuable, but only if they're going to connect to it. Because the goodwill that audience has towards that celebrity or influencer isn't going to necessarily translate to you directly in terms of like, oh, here's $50 to watch a short, Mr. and Mrs. Filmmaker. So valuable if you've got them, but you need to use them strategically. I did a campaign once, for example, with William Shatner and Morena Baccarin, and the filmmakers had a really tough start. And the reason they had the tough start is because they kind of were under the assumption, understandably, that those 2 big giant names would mean a lot in the horror sci-fi world, which is where they were at. And they didn't. Now, when they realized that and realized that they needed to generate their own momentum, sure, they had great conversion rates. If you remember from yesterday's video, I talk about, looking for a 5% conversion rate. I think they were up at like 15, 20%. So sure, having the names are valuable, but only once the work has been done. Just them existing won't matter. Now, if they do lean in, you can have a really, really successful campaign. I've had a few campaigns where names were attached and they actively worked their audience. And yeah, they raised $100,000 kind of easily without actually doing a lot of the other stuff that I trained them on. And I'm not talking giant audiences. I'm talking 50 to 100,000 Instagram followers, but active, engaged followers, not I bought them on Fiverr followers, right? A true, meaningful, engaged audience. But again, like 3 people who've had that. So for everybody else, which is probably most of you watching, what you need, the multiplier that's going to help you, is having a core team of people that can help be your organic social echo chamber, is what I call them. Organic social echo chamber. So what do I mean by that? Well, if you post on Facebook or Instagram or any of the social media, this is just kind of one example, by the way, of this at play. If you post on any of the social media sites, there are algorithms that are determining who's going to see what content. And one of the easiest ways for those algorithms to determine whether or not your content is worthy of sharing and putting on other people's timelines, which is pretty important real estate from their view, is if people are like sharing it and commenting and liking, engaging it, basically, right? So if you just post something and nobody engages with it, you're likely to be seen by about 2 to 3% of your audience. Gone are the days where every post gets seen by everybody, even in groups, which used to be kind of the thing. Now it's a very, very tiny percentage. But if you've got 5 to 10 people, and I'll break down numbers here in a second, if you've got 5 to 10 people who are the first round of organic engagement on your post, they comment on it, they share it, they like it, just that alone isn't going to increase your reach in a sort of like additional sense. It's going to multiply your reach. So if you're reaching 100 or 200 people and then 5 people come along, you're going to reach like 2,000 or 3,000 people now at that point. All right. So the job that's just an example of what a core team member would do, but think in this terms. Whatever actions you're doing, the core team is there to magnify that and multiply those actions. So if you're posting something, they don't necessarily have to post original content. My clients' core teams do not have to do that. They share the content that the main client or the main social media person is putting out on the page, as an example, right? So generally I find that each of these core team members, at least in my world, are worth about $5,000 in backing. Now, granted, these people have been highly trained and they're sort of strategically in play. And that also shifts, like larger numbers, you might want more people to kind of hedge against it, like 60, 70K rather than 15 people. You might want 20 people. Whereas I've had plenty of clients where there's like 2 people or 3 people and they've raised 20K. So the math isn't perfect in that sense. But roughly speaking, if you've got a team who knows what they're supposed to be doing, and they're ready and willing to dive in and back you up, they can be really, really valuable to the campaign. Now, incentivizing them, I have like a 45-minute training video in my course about this. So here's kind of the short version. People who are already involved with the project, people who might have some sort of personal connection to you, people who might be looking for like an associate producer credit. You can incentivize people with credits. Incentivizing people with money is not usually the best way, it seems, to work. It's really providing a chance to learn how to crowdfund. That's a bit like my clients can kind of, like I let my clients give their teams access to my training. So, my clients hire me and then they get free access. So, that's a big incentive for them. But even just, again, if you're not bringing somebody on board whose information you can translate to these people, just doing the diligent work that you should have been doing, listening to the first core component, is a great experience for other people. This is definitely one of the most challenging parts of crowdfunding, is finding people to help. But a couple thoughts. One is, if you can't get 2 or 3 people excited about it, you may not be ready to get hundreds of people excited about it. It's not a direct translation, but you've got to figure out a way to at least get a couple people enthusiastic enough. And so if you haven't figured out how to frame your narrative about this, then you may not be ready then for crowdfunding until you do. The second piece is I really encourage my clients to reach out to these people in person. An email or a Facebook post, hey, who wants to help me crowdfund? No bueno. People are going to respond to your enthusiasm and your vision and your passion and your energy. So bring that literally to the table. Take them out for coffee, take them out for lunch, talk about the vision for the project, how crowdfunding plays into that, and what incentives you think might entice that person. Hell, ask them. I could really use your help, probably half an hour a day during the campaign, mostly reposting stuff and kind of helping spread the word, doing some emails, a little bit of direct outreach, maybe a dozen hours of prep over the next couple months. It's not a huge job. I mean, if you were getting an associate producer credit, you'd be on set for, you'd be hundreds of hours invested before you get that credit. But I'd give that to you for doing, roughly 40 hours over the next 4 months. I'm going to show you what to do, all this kind of stuff, and how they can sort of be folded in and what they would be incentivized with in order to bring them on. So personalization, I have a little mantra in my course, which is personalization equals money, in the sense of what tends to turn people off in terms of backers is like really inauthentic, we need your help, skip your coffee, give me $5, like something that's lacking soul. And the same thing matters when you're building your team. And as artists, you know this, right? So if you're gonna, even like hiring crew and actors, you got to bring some passion to it, because most of those people are going to be working for far less than what they're worth. It's kind of the same thing with crowdfunding, is let them see your vision, let them see your passion, See if you can find an incentive. Ask them, what would it take for you to come on board to do this? Let them tell you. And if you can meet that, great. And if not, heck, let them go happily and then say, great, can I send you the link when we launch? If you share it around a couple times, that'd be awesome. Where people screw this up is they try to over-explain the job. As you develop your plan, realize that this might be the first time you're doing that. And so I often give the analogy of, those people, there's like two types of people. When somebody comes up to you and they say that they've got a project, and you ask them, oh, what's it about? There's two types of people. First type is sort of the quick pitch, right? It's clean, it's smooth, you know exactly what it's about, you're enticed to watch it, but there's not, a minute, 2 minutes. Then there's the people who are like, okay, well, in scene 1, Bob walks in and finds Jane's body on the ground, and we don't know why. So Bob opens the door, and like 20 minutes later, you've had this weird synopsis of the film. You can have no idea what's going on because you've lost interest immediately, and you've just kind of been nodding and smiling. Not because you're an a-hole, but because, like, no one's it's hard. That person is explaining the movie they see in their head to you, and you have not seen that movie, so it's not tracking. It's the same kind of thing when you bring people on. It isn't like, here, let me break down every single little job, but more like, let's unite on this. I'm going to take care of you and make sure you know what you need to do step by step. I'm learning this as well, but on the other side of this, you're involved with the project. You've learned how to crowdfund. Maybe there is a, percentage, you get 1% of the raise or something like that. You've got the associate producer credit, and we can all walk away from this in a way that feels mutually beneficial, because that's what you're looking for, is a win-win. This one, I'm guessing, is going to engender a lot of questions and comments, understandably. So please, however you're watching this, YouTube, Facebook, I'm going to start putting this on Instagram. I'm going to put the audio of this on a podcast. However you're seeing or hearing this, please leave your comments and questions below, and share this damn thing around. Let's help other people. It's not a zero-sum game. If somebody else gets helped by this, that doesn't mean you're screwed. In fact, quite frankly, if you introduce some quality material into some other people's lives as they're trying to crowdfund, and then you hit them up with an personalized email, requesting their help or something like that, you've got a much higher chance of actually getting that. So share this around. And then again, if you're watching this, please leave your questions, comments below, and I will try to answer them in future videos. All of these videos are going to be archived in my Facebook group. It's a free group to join. I don't allow any spam. I don't even really post my own stuff, very rarely. If you go to hackingkickstarter.com, it will forward you to the group. It's called Hacking Kickstarter, a creative community for crowdfunding. I can't remember my subtitle of my own group, but you're invited. Hackingkickstarter.com will forward you, and of course you can always reach out to me on thekickstarterguy.com, whether it's a consultation or a triage service, or I'm going to start posting some of these resources, so if you just need to access a library of free training. Okay, so that is day 3. Core component number 2, which is a multiplier, more specifically for most people having a core team. And I hope this helps, and I will see you tomorrow. Peace.